Hi, I'm Cathy from Quilt Beginnings in Dublin, Ohio, and we are here for month 4, Irish Fade, and we're going to just focus on 9 patches today. This is our easiest one by far. Super simple. The entire thing is made of 2-inch and 5-inch strips. So we start with the 2-inch strips for all of our 9 patches, and then we join them with 5-inch squares, alternating blocks. The only tricky part about this quilt is keeping ourselves organized. As you can see, it's got a beautiful radiating effect, which is why it's called Irish Fade. So we make 1 of the center block, 2 of alternating next round, and then 4, and then 6, and then 8. So we make more and more of the color combinations as we work our way out through the quilt. So we're going to talk about easy ways to strip cut. This time our tool of the choice is the shape cutter. This is a great tool for cutting strips all the same size, and I'll give a little demonstration on that in a few minutes. And then I just wanted to hold up our kit. And remember that all of the fabrics are presented to you in the order of your guide. So as you go down, you start at the front and go up to these, and then all of these. It'll make it a lot easier if you get it labeled when you first start. So let's go over to the cutting station. So this time I labeled my kit with stickers again. I went back to the sticker version, and this is what's left over. So you will have some fabric left over after you get everything cut. I gave you some, I want to give you a quick demonstration on the Shape Cut Plus, and I'm just going to do it with my white. I would do all the same with my colored fabrics as well. Your pattern will tell you how many strips you need of each set. So I just take a piece of fabric, and a half yard is about how much you want to work with at a time. If it gets much bigger than that, it's really unwieldy with the shape cutter. So I just pull some off of my white, and I just said about a half yard. And then I fold it in half, and I like to cover up my selvage because the selvage can be a little deceptive in how straight it is or crooked it is. So I'm going to just have a fold here and a fold here. I'm going to take my Shape Cut Plus ruler, and I'm going to put the 0 line and the line of the 12 across the top fold. I want my bottom to also be parallel to a line. And then I want to be hanging over the 0 just a little bit so that I have my cleaning cut. So it's really important that we get this fold on the line of the shape cut. Otherwise, you're going to create strips that have a V in them, and you're not going to like them. So this is the only thing we really have to be careful about. I'm going to pick up my ruler, and these are marked 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. They're on 1 and 1/2 inch markers. So I'm going to, because I want 2-inch strips, I'm going to cut at the 0, the 2, the 4, the 6, the 8, 10, 12, 14, etc. So I'm going to just start in the 0. I put my blade into the cutout, and I'm going to cut across. Then I'm going to come over to the 2 and cut across. And then the 4, you go into the hole and cut across. The 6, etc. 8, carry on. After they're all cut, you'll see I have all my 2-inch strips. You need a lot of 2-inch strips for this. And in the pattern for the white, our pattern tells us that we need 38 2-inch strips for the white fabric. And then 11 of those strips we're going to open up like this, and we're going to cut them on the fold. And that's going to give us a half strip. Let me go ahead and pull this. I like using a ruler when I cut on the fold. I would stack up 11 of them. Here's just 1. And then cut on the fold. Okay? So you're going to have whole strips, which keep the fold, and then half strips. So these will measure about 21 inches, and these will measure about 41 inches. So we're going to cut 38 of those 2-inch strips. And then of a few of them, you're going to cut 20 2-inch squares. You'll need 2. When I cut my 2-inch squares, you want to make sure you pull that selvage off. And then you can use the shape cutter again if you want. You would just put, again, the 0, getting rid of all that selvage. And I can come up, lay it square to a line, and then cut just like I did before. 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, etc. And you would keep going. So there's my 2-inch squares. We need a few 2-inch squares because our center blocks, we only need one of the center block and we only need 2 of colors C and D. And so it doesn't make sense to try and strip piece those because there just aren't that many blocks of them. When we go to cut those 3 fabrics, they don't need very much fabric. And so instead of cutting a whole 2-inch strip off of it, I just go to their end. And this is doubled up. I would cut off my selvage, which this has already been cut off. And then I would cut a 2-inch strip and cut it into 2-inch squares. So there's 2 inches. And then I would take this and turn it. And then 2. And then 2. Okay. So that's how I would cut my squares. I would not go ahead and do a whole strip of it. All right. So we're going to have squares for block 1. And we're going to have strips for all the other blocks. B, C, and D will all be cut with squares. Everything else will use strips. All right, so let's say we finished cutting all of our 2-inch strips of all of our colors, and your pattern will tell you how many strips and how many half strips you need of each color. So just follow your pattern for that. And I'll talk about a table I give you in a minute. The next thing we need to cut is all of our 5-inch squares. I've already cut a few of them, but you can also use the Shape Cut Plus for this as well. Since I just did a cleaning cut on this, I don't need to re-clean it. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 0 here. I don't have a lot of fabric left to show you, but I can go ahead and cut it the 5, the 10, the 15, and then move my fabric to cut more of my 5-inch squares. And then the same thing, I can open up that unit. Actually, I can even leave it folded and cut 4 at a time. And lay it this way. And then same thing, I'm going to line up a line. Let me push this off a little bit. Line up a line with that, the top of my 5-inch line. And then I'm going to cut at 0, 5, and 10. 0 is going to be my cleaning cut. And 5 and 10 will give me my 5-inch square. So I'll start at 0, 5, 10. It's nice that you don't have to move your fabric across, or you move your ruler across the fabric. It just cuts perfectly for you. So that's how we'll do all of our 5-inch squares. Okay, so let's go to constructing our 9 patches. All right, so let's just look at the construction of a 9 patch. This is such a simple block, but it's really comprised of 9 squares. 5 are always the color, and the 4 part is always white. If you think of a 9 patch, it's actually made of 3 rows: a dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, and dark, light, dark. These 2 are always the same, and this one is always inverted. So when we go to piece these all together, we're going to pay attention to making twice as many of this configuration as this, because we'll need 2 of these for each block. For the very first block, when we start in the center, we only need 1, and so we're going to start with 5 2-inch squares and 4 white squares, and I'll just show you how I chain piece 1 together. Okay, so I've cut my color B into 2-inch squares, and I need 5 of those, and I need 4 of my white. This is a slow way to make the 9 patches. It'll be a lot more fun when we get to strip piecing, but you only need 1 of this block. So I'm going to go ahead, and these are solid, so I don't need to flip them over, but I'm putting what's essentially right sides together, and I'm going to take these to my sewing machine, and I'll be right back. For this, I'm always going to press towards the dark. So I'm just going to pull my dark to the dark, or to the color, and to the color. I'm going to line it back up this way, this way, this way, and I'm going to flip these over to create my 3 rows. The top and the bottom are the same, and the middle is the opposite. Sew these together. Flip them apart. And I'm going to press to the dark one more time. I have 2 rows that are the same, and the middle is the opposite. I'm going to go ahead and flip that over. These butt together really nicely because we press everything to the color, and we'll see that over at the machine. So I just want to really make sure that I keep that, that little junction right there. They nest really perfectly together. You can see that? And I just use my finger to hold them. If you like to use pens, you can, but I prefer just using my fingers. I'm going to pull that one out. Open it. And put this on the opposite side. Don't those look nice? Lovely. Put this one on. I put this purple thread on so you guys can see it, so it makes my seams not look so pretty. I just hold. Again, I'm going to nest this corner right there. And then I tend to press both of these out, but they're, whoops, over here. There we go. There's our perfect 9 patch. All right, now we're going to move on to strip piecing. Okay, so as we pointed out earlier, every 9 patch is made of 5 of the colored blocks and 4 of the white blocks. So we need twice as many of these rows as we do of this. I don't like to use full strips and half strips because I end up sewing a lot more than I actually need. So I gave you a table that shows you basically how many 9 patches you're going to make of that color combination, and you'll need to cut 2 of the colored strips and 1 of the white strips, twice as long as you'll do the reverse. So this will be the inside row, and these will be the top and bottom row of your 9 patch. So these are 2 of these and 1 of these. If I look at color Sprout, which happens to be color G, it says that I need 2 25-inch of the colored and 1 25-inch of white. So I went ahead and laid my strips out in this configuration, and I'm going to look at my mat and go over to 25, and it already has some surplus in there for you. You want to make sure you get these salvages out of your way. So I just kind of pull them off my mat and know that I'm not going to include them in my count to get to 25 inches, and then I'm going to trim 25 inches. So instead of sewing all 42 inches of this, I'm only going to sew this much, which is a lot more efficient. Then this is all extra. For my green-white version, I need of color G 13 inches. And again, this is where I cut on the fold so it's clean. So I just need to come over 13 inches on my mat, which is right here. And I've given you an extra inch for squaring up after you sew. And I'm going to pull this off. So this is all extra from that half strip that we had, that the pattern has you cut. Okay, so these are my 2 strip sets that I'm going to put together, and we'll be back in a few minutes. For every step, we're going to always press to the dark. So for both of these, I will get up and press to the dark. Just like to set my seam. I just put the dark on top and let the iron do the work of opening it. And get it nice and open. Do the same with this one. If you have an ironing board, it's a little easier because you have the whole length, just using an ironing mat. Okay. And I'll add the short side to this and the long green to this, and I'll be right back. Back to pressing. Again, pressing towards my dark. You can see my purple thread just so you could see where I sewed. And I'm pressing it out. And then with the green, I'm going to press in. towards the green. All right, so I've got my strip sets put together. I'm moving my pressing mat out of the way, and I'm going to show you how we can use the June Tailor yet again. So what I like to do is cut this unit in half because it's twice as long as this unit. So I'm just going to fold it and cut it in half. So I need 2 of these and 1 of these. And then I like to go ahead and nest these together so that when I cut them, they're ready for me to go take to the cutting station and sew. The seams really just butt really nicely to each other if you pressed everything to the color. And then I put this one below it because this will get added on after I sew these 2 together. So I'm going to go ahead and press that. And then I'm lining them up with my June Tailor again. And I want to make sure that I'm on a line. Let me pull this out of the way. I want to make sure that I'm on a line and that they are both squared up to the ruler. So you can see that I'm on my 12. And I also want to make sure that my 0 line is going to cut off all this selvage right in here. And then I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut at 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Okay. And there we're all cut. And these are ready to sew together. They're already nested. They're already put in the right order. I'm going to pick these up and take them to my sewing machine. After I get those sewn together, I'll come and add this to the other side. You can chain piece these, the same thing. You just want to make sure that you butt up that corner right there, and they're already nice and nested together, as you can see there. Okay, I'm going to put them in, and I'm just going to feed one right behind the other. I know some of you like to pin, but I love my fingers. Stilettos also work nicely here to help you hold it in position. But they're already nested together, which is really nice. I like stacking them on top of each other when I cut, so they're already nested. Okay, I'll just do a few of these. Don't need to do all of them for you. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and press these. It doesn't really matter which way you press because every nine patch is going to be sewn to a 5-inch square. So it doesn't really matter. I will say I tend to press them out because I like the seams going away from the middle, but you can press them whatever way you want. See how beautifully they line up. They fit really nicely. And I'm going to put the other side on. So they're sitting right here. I'm just going to flip it over and nestle up those seams just like we did with the last set. Etc. Do one last press. And we'll sew all of that color together. I just want to show you a little picture of Miss Katie with her stack of all of her 9 patches when she had them done. Look at that look of joy. You're going to feel the same way when yours are done. Okay, so we're going to do that for all of our colors. It's quite a stack of 9 patches, and then we're going to sew them together in rows. So let's look back over at our quilt. So this quilt is kind of interesting the way they laid it out. It's not It's irradiating from the center, and they alternate the colors around the center. So this is one color, and then they do opposite corners for the second color, and then they do every other color, so darker, lighter, darker, lighter, darker, lighter, darker, lighter. It's kind of an odd way to keep track of. So it's really important that all of your blocks are labeled what color is what when you go to lay it out. The diagram that they give you is really quite nicely put together. I don't know if you can see her. I'll put it here. There you go. But it shows you what color goes where. And if you look at the top row of this row, is actually exactly the same as the bottom row. But it's flipped around. So the colors are alternating, and they're really close. You can see the colors alternate in every row, but they're really close to each other in value. And so it gets a little bit confusing. So just make sure you keep everything labeled. And then you're just gonna, you can either start at the top. Katie actually started in the center and then worked left and right, left and right, left and right, whatever works for you. But if you make two of the same row and then flip one around, it's going to be the opposite side. So either the top half and the bottom half, or the left side and the right side, however you want to do it. There you go. You're going to have fun putting this one together. It's no points, no tricky, nothing tricky about this one, just a lot of strip piecing. So have fun with it, and we'll see you next month.